to AI-Powered Entrepreneurship, turning technology into thriving ventures, our latest Ivey Impact Live video session. My name is Daniel Clark, and I'm an Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship at the Ivey Business School. I'm joined here with my doctoral student, Henrique Alves de Castro, who is doing his PhD dissertation on AI and entrepreneurship. This is our third impact event on AI, reflecting your interest in this technology that is seemingly everywhere. Today, we turn our lens to the people really leading the charge in the expansion of AI. Not the scientists, not Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, maker of ChatGPT, not even Elon Musk. It's the entrepreneurs, the individuals who, seeing an opportunity to create new value through AI, have put their lives on hold, cobbled together knowledge, resources, talent, and turned them to bear on that opportunity. They are risking their money, their time, and their security in the hopes of creating something special that will create lasting value. Today, we'll be focused on understanding what it means to be an AI entrepreneur, what that opportunities are for entrepreneurs in AI, and specifically what it means here in Canada. To kick things off, I'd like to get a sense of where our audience stands. To do that, I prepared a couple of quick poll questions. You should see these pop up on your screen in just a moment. Once we see the responses slow down, I'll share the results so we can set the stage for the conversation. First question is, AI is being applied to a wide range of problems and opportunities faced by businesses and individuals every day. To what extent are you open to AI-powered solutions? And then there's a lot of hype around AI. Realistically, what effect do you think AI will have on the Canadian economy in 5 years? We are fortunate today to have three experts three expert doers here with us today. Patricia Thaine is the co-founder and CEO of Private AI. Her company, backed by Microsoft among others, has won numerous awards for their technology, was named a 2023 Technology Pioneer by the World Economic Forum, and Patricia herself is on the Maclean's Power List for 2024 as one of the top 100 Canadians shaping the country. Sayjel Patel, the CTO and co-founder of Digital Blue Foam. His company has developed an AI-powered aimed at disrupting the architecture and planning industries. Their AI powers algorithms enabling generative designs and spatial analytics. Sayjel was trained in architecture at MIT and has worked and taught around the world. Navin Kaminoulu may well be our most experienced AI entrepreneur. Indeed, in this industry, he's practically a grandfather, as he started his AI company, Indus.ai, way back in 2017. Indus was acquired 3 years ago by Procore. Navin is now an investor, a mentor, and advisor to Ivey's own Morissette Institute. Thank you all for being here. Before we get started, I just want to give everybody a chance to spend 30 seconds or so introducing themselves and their company. Why don't we start with Sayjel? This would be a good time to unmute, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for the great introduction. It's a huge honor to be part of this panel. A little bit about us. So at DBF, we basically play SimCity for real. So as an architect, just growing up, it's been a dream to apply these technologies to rethink the way we model and design cities, and also like some of the most complex and challenging real estate projects across the world. Our team is based out of Singapore, but we also work remotely, and we're in about 8 different countries. And just to answer your question, the reason why we got into AI, I think there's 2 reasons. So for our customers, what we find is our clients are looking for ways of how they can leverage their data and proprietary knowledge as a competitive advantage. But for us as a software company, we use AI. It's really game-changing in the way we develop and deliver our products. And then I would just add, just for the Ivey audience, we're looking for interns and collaborators. So if anyone's interested, please visit our website and hit us up, and happy to take the conversation forward.
I think that's actually a great pitch, because I'm sure the Ivey audience would love the opportunity to intern with you. Patricia, why don't you go next?
That's good. Thanks so much for that intro, and great to be here. So my background's in research and privacy and natural language and speech processing. And while working on said research, realized that it was very difficult to get data for certain research in natural language processing, and then started talking to various industry players who were trying to get data from their own customers, and they required de-identification. So removal of personal information from the data in order to be able to access it. And they were working on these products in-house. There was nothing on the market that allowed them to actually identify personal information, be able to remove it at will, and allowed them to do so directly within their environment. And then the next step was realizing this is crazy. That means that no one can actually comply with data protection regulations for 80 to 90% of the data that they have, which is unstructured. And it was fairly clear in 2019, AI is going to change things. Folks are going to need to have trust in order to be able to unlock their data for AI. And right now we're seeing that one of the biggest concerns for getting AI into production is trust around privacy or explainability and so on. And so we focus on the privacy aspect of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Navin.
Thanks, Daniel, Henrique. And I don't know if I should be insulted or I should be flattered, referring to me as an AI grandfather. So, yeah, so I founded a company called Indus.ai or co-founded a company called Indus.ai in 2017. And our thesis was really around construction sites are organized chaos. If anyone has ever visited one or driven by one, a lot of the work is done by visual inspection of progress, safety, et cetera. And our thesis was if you could apply artificial intelligence to the recognition of images, drawings, you'd be able to expedite things such as schedules, safety, compliance, et cetera. So we built our product. We raised multiple rounds of venture capital. Eventually, we exited to a company called Procore Technologies, which shortly after our acquisition went public. And I spent 3 years there leading a $500 million ARR product line. And then after that, now I'm in the venture capital world. So excited to talk to you guys about AI with Sayjel and Patricia. Thanks, guys.
Fantastic. And no, only a compliment in there is you look far too young to be a grandfather. Before we really dig in, I want to throw out a question because AI has particularly jumped to the top of the news with the announcement that Chinese startup DeepSeek has fundamentally rechanged the economics of AI with their introduction of a large language model that they claim that they use a fraction of the number of chips and processing power required of ChatGPT, and they managed to train the model for about 1% of what it costs. I want to throw this out to our panel. What are your reaction to that news? What are your thoughts that this is likely to have for the status quo in the AI industry? Anybody want to jump in?
Yeah, I can go first. I think for the audience, the analogy that I'll use is if you go back around 15 years ago, it was the advent of cloud computing. So prior to that, when people would build software applications, you would have to go and buy a server and whatnot to give your software accessibility to people outside of your own environment. So once you reached cloud computing, it basically gave everyone the ability to develop software applications much easier. So I would say DeepSeek, think about it from that lens. Now you have something that just basically gives anybody the ability to build cheaper, more accessible AI applications or large learning models. And it just makes it that much easier for anybody to build something and get it out to folks. So think about it from that lens, and maybe that'll help people kind of form an opinion on DeepSeek.
Patricia?
I have a bit of a differing opinion where it comes to that. So the DeepSeek, Llama, those models out of the box will handle certain problems well enough. For a lot of the problems that organizations are trying to solve, they could have solved them with models from 2019, 2017. And it's only now that it's dawning on them that they could solve those problems because there is this hype going on. I don't think it's actual hype if they do it properly. So some of the main constraints are around data pipelines, data accessibility, that trust aspect that I mentioned. And all of that requires a heavy lift. And a lot of people are expecting these newer, shinier models are going to be able to work right out of the box for whatever it is that you want them to. And that's what causes the bubble. But for the companies that are actually putting in the heavy lift required on the data side, because a nicer model doesn't mean you don't need better data, those are the ones that are going to win.
Sayjel, do you have anything you want to add? Or?
Yeah, for sure. So like for us, since we work in the enterprise software space, what we find is a lot of our clients, even with ChatGPT or Llama, they're very skeptical to use these tools and to give their data away. And so what I think DeepSeek does is it raises the awareness of like open source models that could be deployed locally within an enterprise. And so this alleviates a lot of the concerns in terms of adoption. So for us, that's within the news, like the game changer is the open source aspect and the awareness about that.
Okay, great, thank you. So AI, Canada gets the reputation of being one of the initial players in AI because of Geoffrey Hinton and the so-called godfather of AI being from University of Toronto. Patricia, you were educated at the University of Toronto. I'm just wondering, where do you think Canada's role in AI is likely to play going forward? And what does the ecosystem here in Canada look like?
That's a very heavy question. I think that there has been over the last few years more and more Canadian entrepreneurs staying in Canada. And that's caused by a few different aspects. More money coming in from both Canadian investors and also American investors. Before before COVID and the first Trump election, uh, there there was a lot more hesitation to invest outside of the US from American investors. And so a lot of the investment coming into Canada is part of that wave of de-risking from one particular environment. And with that comes a lot of expertise as well. In addition to the expertise that comes with those investors, there's the Creative Destruction Lab that has been doing an incredible job at bringing experts from other parts of the world to complement the knowledge that we have here in Canada. So we've got extremely good technical expertise, but that go-to-market knowledge from once you reach 1 million ARR, that's annual recurring revenue, to 10 to 100 million in ARR, that's expertise that is lacking in Canada. A lot of that is in the United States. And the mentors, the network that has come into Canada is now enabling that network to inform what Canadian entrepreneurs are doing in their new wave of AI companies.
Sayjel, I mean, you were from the States and you spent some time in Singapore. What made you decide to come back to Canada?
Oh, I was always in Toronto. I came
I'm
from
talking about
Montreal.
Sayjel. Sorry,
Oh yeah.
Sayjel.
Oh, sorry.
It was more of like a family driven decision, but I think and this is part of the reason I reached out to Ivey is to try to understand like the network and opportunities here in Canada. I think in Singapore it's a little bit different situation for entrepreneurship. It's very like regionally focused, whereas in Canada I think there's a lot of opportunities with like the way things are going on in the world in terms of basing a company here.
Yeah. Navin, Patricia was talking about the wisdom and intelligence of money coming into Canada and the ability for it to flow into the country. As an investor, what is your take on that?
Yeah, as an investor, I think, like people are always, and I think somebody even asked early on in the chat, how can I raise money for my AI idea? So I would say for entrepreneurs who are looking to raise money, and I could speak about this for a long time, you got to think about it from a few different lenses. The first one I would say is you really, really need to understand the problem space. So if I'm an investor and you're coming to pitch me, you need to really convince me that you understand the problem very deep. And an example I'll give is, if you're somebody who's coming up with a new solution to solve firefighter dispatching, you have to convince me that you've spent hours with firefighters. Maybe your dad or mom is a firefighter. You really know this problem space. The second thing I would say, and I'll put the AI focus on this, is similar to what Patricia and Sayjel were saying, is there's so much, I would say, vanilla types of AI applications out there. You need to build something that's vertically aligned. So one, you need to know the problem space. Two, build an AI product or solution that's vertically aligned. There are these generic things such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Bard, etc. they're just getting spit out something that's very generic and doesn't really offer any utility to any businesses or customer or enterprises. So build something that is super vertical and also know the problem space. The last thing you asked is around like what are some of the as an investor, what are some of the opportunities? I would say think about AI agents. So things that could kind of automate tasks. And a simple example, not simple example, an example that probably a lot of people would know is driverless cars. So think about, one, knowing the problem space, two, building something that's a vertical, you're going to solve a vertical problem. And last but not least, think about AI agents where you're going to build something that can automate or perform tasks that humans usually do.
In the past, we've seen tech gold rushes before. I mean, whether it was the internet in the 1990s, the platforms in the 2010s. I mean, it's pretty regular for there to be some great new technology and people want to rush into it. And there always seems to be that very smart money who truly understands where the opportunity is, and those who are just afraid to miss out and just want to start throwing money at the problem. Where are we in that cycle now? I mean, is the money still very smart, or are we starting to see this influx of just free-flowing capital?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the sophisticated, the reality is you're right, there's a lot of capital out there. But the sophisticated venture capital funds or the sophisticated investors, they are deploying capital to specific things. So I'll go back to what I said earlier. They are looking at people who can kind of vertically apply AI. And at the same time, they're looking for people who actually really understand the problem, right? The last piece is I think that folks are also looking at some blue sky opportunities, such as, building better chips, building data centers, right? These are other things that we will also need if we're going to have this AI revolution. You're just not going to have these applications. You're also going to need the ability to power them, and last but not least, the energy to provide power for the applications to actually work.
I mean, Patricia, you've been very successful raising money, but you've particularly gone after relatively smart money. What has your approach of this been?
So I'll answer that in a second. I just wanted to add one thing to what Navin was saying about vertical alignment. A lot of the questions that C-suite have right now are around ROI, and essentially they're telling their teams, go and deploy LLMs, figure it out. And the teams don't know what to do with these LLMs a lot of the time. They might, some do, very rarely so. And so if you do have that vertical expertise, in addition to that AI expertise, and you find something that delivers ROI and you could deliver it to those teams, and tell them this is how you're going to tell your C-suite that you're delivering ROI from an LLM, that is probably going to do a lot of enterprises a favor. And your question around smart money, see, I'm very nerdy, and so me pitching to investors who don't understand our technology is not general. I wouldn't say I'm the best at that, and so I ended up recruiting money from folks who have a deep understanding of AI or the applications of AI and privacy as well, or rely on deep tech expertise. And how you recruit that smart money is by talking to a lot of people and figuring out which ones are the ones that you match with the best. I think for our seed round, we ended up getting 5 term sheets, but I had to talk to about 60 different investors for that. For pre-seed, it took about 7 months to find the right people that we felt comfortable with before taking the plunge. So if you don't have the right network in place yet, it does take a while to find, but also talk to other companies that are in the space, maybe not directly competitive to you, but tangentially, who might have recommendations about which investors are the best in their experience, and longitudinally as well.
Right. Sayjel, what's your experience been there?
I have a little bit different experience because we've bootstrapped our company, but I would agree, maybe on Navin's point about vertical alignment. I would say in the past 6 to 12 months, a lot of the enterprises that we've been talking to are much more enthusiastic around adoption of AI tools. But I think it has to be coupled with like a deep understanding of the domain you're working in, but also like what we're bringing as a company is like 7 years of expertise and like an existing software platform and tools that we use AI to sort of unlock from like the product and user experience perspective. But I would say like you can just it's a lot easier today maybe to bootstrap a product than to actually go for the investment. So that's been my experience with my company.
And I'm guessing that because of what we were just talking about with DeepSeek, is that actually the ease of bootstrapping probably is getting progressively easier as we moved on week by week. Is that true?
Absolutely. And I would say like with AI, it just, even if you're not doing an AI product, it changes the way you develop products. Like I think the productivity of an engineer is like, there's like a massive force multiplier when you adopt AI in the way your company operates and builds products. So that's like another aspect to this that's really transformative.
And I think to add on to that, now, if you go back, I'm going to say even a few years, it was quite revolutionary if you could build like a clickable prototype of something. So, you had products out there like an InVision where you could draw something and you could have a clickable prototype that somebody could see, okay, cool, I understand what you're doing. Now you have technology, and I just learned of this a few days ago. There's a product called Lovable, where you can actually feed it your product requirements, and it's going to build you a preliminary version or a minimal viable product of your idea. So, if you just think that AI is really commoditizing a lot of the technology and tools that we would have had to have humans building things years ago. So there's a lot more accessibility and things on how we can build things.
Great. Thanks, Navin. So considering this week's earlier events, I want to spend a few moments discussing with you about the opportunities in the field of AI. And firstly, in the past 20 to 25 years, we saw the intense influx of private money leading to some bubbles within and outside the entrepreneurship world. We know that the rapid increase in firms' valuation does not necessarily mean that we're experiencing a bubble, but for sure is a strong symptom, right? And given the astronomical amount of money that has been feeding recently for AI firms in all levels, applications, models, and infrastructure, I want to hear from you whether you feel that we are experiencing or about to experience an AI bubble. And perhaps related to that question, how do you or how can we disaggregate or separate the real opportunities from the hype? I guess, Patricia, why don't we start with you?
That's a tricky question. I mean, for sure, there's definitely some bubble. You can there's if you look at the applications that are out there, you might see things like chatbots, of course, summarization, generation of web pages, and a lot of the appropriate use cases for the technology are still being discovered, and there's still a lot of excitement for the technology. And until the use cases are properly mapped out, I think that's when and that excitement hasn't popped. That's when the bubble is happening. So folks might be trying to fling this hammer into as many nails as possible, as we saw with blockchain. But the thing is that this technology applies to 80 to 90% of the data that's out there, and use cases beyond that as well, right? So it's one of those occasions where this hammer has legitimately a lot of nails that it can hit. Unlike where we saw with blockchain, where folks were basically getting, for example, funding for their projects for databases because blockchain was a hot word, and their C-level might have been more amenable to funding new technology rather than a new database. This is one of those situations where you can tell the good from the bad based on that ROI. What is the ROI that you're pinning to it? And that is the most difficult question to grapple with if you don't understand the domain properly and you don't understand what was happening before without that technology. So have a deep understanding of that domain. Verticalization, like Navin mentioned, is a great idea. And keeping track of metrics is a great idea as well, asking for those metrics from folks who are deploying these technologies as well.
Great. Sayjel, Navin, any thoughts on that?
I'll just add quickly. I think, yes, there is likely some sort of bubble. And what I would tell folks, the way to think about this is if we go back 10 years and we remember when this thing came out, there was an app for everything. I remember that companies were raising an app for calling a tow truck, and they'd raise millions of dollars, and then you'd never hear about that company again. So I think that, you have the ability to build lots of AI applications. There's money out there to go and raise capital. So those are two good check marks for you as an entrepreneur. But think about a business that you can build around this. So just because you can raise money, it gives you some credibility, but you have to build a real business. Otherwise, it'll be like this. Now I would ask any one of you to go look on your phone. You probably only have like 4 or 5 apps that you really use. But if you go back over the last 10 years, there were like thousands of apps developed for everything. And now there's only 4 or 5 that really survived because people built businesses around them.
So there's an AI for that.
I have a slight, maybe a little bit different take. I do agree with like Patricia and Navin's points, but I would say like AI is like I fully like embraced the Kool-Aid. Like I think ChatGPT is probably the greatest invention since the iPhone, and it's also like AI is like changing the way we engage with the world, how we consume knowledge, how we learn. It's changing not only, it's not a technical thing, it's like rewiring our brains, and we still don't know what this all means. It's probably good and bad. There are opportunities, and we're still trying to figure it out. Like just as Navin said, like back in the day, we have an iPhone, so there needs to be an app for everything. But then it's like matured. So I think we're at a really exciting time, for sure.
Interesting. Thanks for that. And since we're talking about opportunities in the space of AI, that's the million-dollar question for you now. What will be the pathways and opportunities for those entrepreneurs who want to launch an AI-based product or start a AI-based organization? Navin, I guess, can we start with you?
Yeah, entrepreneurship, like there isn't really a direct pathway, right? People usually come from different backgrounds. So I think, we'll just use the lens of entrepreneurship with some AI on top of it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you really have to understand the domain. So, if you want to, learn how mechanics work, go and study mechanical engineering, and maybe that'll lead you into learning about mechanics and manufacturing, and then you'll know that problem space, and then eventually you could pursue a career in entrepreneurship. Layer on top of that AI. The reality is that these tools are readily applicable. You can build prototypes, you can build products very simply. So really learn that problem space, and there is no, secret sauce to becoming an entrepreneur. You just understand the domain, and going back to what Patricia was saying, and understand that problem space, and that'll really help you kind of figure out if there's an entrepreneurship path for you with an AI lens to it.
I want to extend on that one. The phrase that I've been hearing a lot lately is the notion of competitive disadvantage. And that if you aren't building AI into your solutions, whether you're an AI related business or not, you need to start thinking about how to incorporate an AI into the solutions you have going forward. Sayjel, as a company that has taken a very non-AI industry and brought AI into it, how did that thinking evolve for you?
Yeah, I think the challenge, say in the architecture industry, is that like projects are a global, like common challenge, but have local problems and local requirements. So in terms of like AI, it's a game changer in terms of like like we keep hearing this term, it's called like localization. Like how can you take a like kind of general use tool, but then localize it to a building type, a client, or a location? And so this is the area we're really excited about, is like taking a kind of very specialized tool, but then like delivering it to different opportunities.
I mean, you have your fingers in a lot of different entrepreneurial endeavors. Have you started to ask yourself, how quickly could this idea be disrupted by somebody else walking along with an AI-powered solution?
Yeah, and it goes back to, whether it's, either investments that we have or other personal investments. I do think that people need to have some sort of AI strategy. Otherwise, to your point earlier, a lot of the, I would caution a lot of the everyday software that people are using in either businesses or consumer, they will be disrupted by some type of AI application. So either you need to have an AI strategy, or you may be in trouble in the very near future.
Patricia, I have a question for you, and I do that because you are the female representation on this panel. Mark Zuckerberg recently said that he wanted to see more of a bro culture brought back to Facebook and technology. What are you finding as a female entrepreneur, as a leader of a corporation? Is that something you're having to fight against? Is this something you're running into? Are we seeing a change in values in the AI industry to match what has existed in the traditional tech industry?
I think a lot of discrimination happens behind doors. I mean, sometimes you have these blatant, crazy statements of the workplace being too feminine, or whatever it is that Zuckerberg said. We're lucky in Canada that it's one of those countries that we feel a little bit less of this. It is one of the most equal countries in the world when it comes to gender equality. The investors that I have are incredibly supportive. But if you look at the numbers of how much female-only founding teams can raise versus female and male versus only male, it's indisputable that there is discrimination in the industry. In the tech industry itself, I've heard from many women who have stopped being in tech because of the discrimination that they faced on the workplace. So I think that we all, as leaders, have a really big, important part to play in making sure that the workplace is somewhere comfortable for anybody to work in, not just women. And as investors, I would encourage the folks to look at what it is that the companies that they're investing in are doing with regards to treating not even gender balance, but treating the individuals within the organization well. You may have seen what happened with Boardly a couple of or last week, 2 weeks ago. That kind of bro culture is not good for your investments, period. And Zuckerberg may be able to somewhat get away with it, but not every company would be able to get away with it.
Thank you for that. I mean, as an investor, is this something that you run into? I mean, do you see an emerging bro culture in AI, or are we resisting that?
Well, I think to Patricia's point, like the sad reality is, unfortunately, for a lot of tech firms, it is male dominated, and with that, there's lots of testosterone, and you could easily develop that culture. But I think it can happen, and as an investor, you just look for founders who have some humility and who you can make a bet that they're not going to become, to the example that you shared earlier, Mark Zuckerberg, in terms of really kind of pushing this bro type of culture.
So, I mean, we're still in a place where the AI industry is a bit of a Wild West, and it's not just about regulating the AI infrastructure that is driving AI's introduction into the broadstream economy, but also most industries haven't figured out where AI is likely to fit. And I think specifically for Sayjel, I mean, you're in an industry where there probably hasn't really been a whole lot of consideration of what AI can and can't do, should and shouldn't do. What are your thinking is relating around regulation, self-regulation? Where do you expect to see, rules around AI to develop?
Yeah, I think I would say though, like I think there's a big strong awareness within the construction and architecture industry that it is a legacy industry and they need to change. I think the big opportunity is really around how knowledge is transferred among the different disciplines. So for example, like on a lab building, there might be 20 different consultants that need to work together. And so like the power of like these tools is like you're kind of making knowledge, specialized knowledge, like accessible. In terms of regulations and rules, we have a lot of government clients. And so their sort of like policies around AI in terms of like data governance or the use of models does impact our work. And so like I think like the approach right now, and I think it's going to change because it's just like something that's brand new, is like right now like there's a lot of like kind of pushback around using like ChatGPT or certain AI models in projects just because they don't know yet. They don't know what the implications are.
Patricia? Yeah.
I can add to that. There are a few different points that I'd like to add. So number one, if you look at more traditional industries, I won't name any names, but there are a few, they will completely misunderstand what the problems are with AI for their particular industry, given the model that is being deployed. One example, I was hearing from an entrepreneur in one a vertical, was that he mentioned investors and users of the technologies in that area are worried about hallucinations being a problem when they're using classifiers, not generative models. So to be clear, there's no problem with hallucinations in classifiers. That's not a thing. Hallucinations is the concern of will you get fake data integrated into a chatbot response, for example. So fundamentally, it's understanding one, if you are a buyer in this industry, having some more fundamental understanding of the technologies and what the actual concerns are. But two, I think that regulation does end up putting constraints around technologies that makes people more comfortable around the use of them. And oftentimes the groups in charge of determining whether something is ready for deployment or not are in a bit of a limbo, quite a bit of a limbo, when it comes to, is this safe enough to deploy? Is this private enough to deploy? Am I going to have something to tell our customers about this technology that I can point to afterwards and say, this is in line with best practices? And lack thereof means that you have to figure those things out yourself. And you basically have to tell them, this is what I think is best. And that ends up becoming quite a bit of a blocker to innovation, contrary to a lot of popular belief around legal constraints. And one other point to add to what Navin was saying with regards to how to start thinking about entrepreneurship in this area. You have to talk to as many people as possible about the problem that you're solving. And that's both for solving things internally, for figuring out what the ROI is going to be for your project, but also for building a company. You have to talk to them about your hypotheses, test these hypotheses. These are going to change over time. I talked to about 70 different people before I decided to jump into this particular problem that we're solving. But every time that you're building a product, you need to restart that hypothesis testing and then make sure that it is the best possible idea compared to everything else that you have on your plate.
Wonderful, thank you. Before we go to our audience and give them the opportunity to ask some questions, I want to close out by giving you each a chance to maybe take 30 seconds or so to be a prognosticator and look forward. In the next 5 years, what excites you, what terrifies you, what do you think the conversation is going to be as it relates to AI, or maybe your industry or your specific vertical? And what are you seeing going forward? Why don't we go to Navin first?
Yeah, like I think that as consumers or people who work in businesses, the way to really think about this is just the next evolution of software, right? So we went from, I go back to that example, we were building software where we had servers, then we had the advent of the cloud, and then eventually we had mobile, and you had the internet somewhere in there as well, right? Now this is just the next evolution. So just think about it from that lens. And what I'll leave people with, and I heard this quote, and it's not mine, but I do find it very relevant, is people are always worried about displacement and losing my job, or how do I prepare for the future? What I will tell people is AI won't take your job, but a person who knows how to use AI will. So just think about it from that lens. Like, this is just the next evolution of software. Learn how to use it, learn how it can make your job easier and simpler, and that'll prepare you for the future.
Who wants to go next? Sayjel?
Yeah, so I think for me, what's really exciting is it's really accelerating the transformation of like traditionally like legacy industries like health, law, or architecture. So like there's a lot on like, how do we like bill, like what's the ROI, what's the business model, like how does this transform the business model of like architecture firms? So I think there'll be a huge disruption in the way like in my kind of area, like how success and value is quantified and delivered. And I think also the benefit is like often like a lot of the problems in terms of like design are really complex. And what AI and some of these digital tools and adopting it is that we can use like more data and evidence to design a city and see how it's like delivering a higher quality of life, rather than like traditionally people would use heuristics or sort of like tacit knowledge in the way they would design. Now it's like, we can have evidence-based ways of designing better cities and buildings. So I'm really excited about that aspect.
Patricia, you get to close off on this.
There's this thing that one of my undergrad colleagues had said, which I thought was really beautiful and stayed with me, which was programming is the ultimate creative tool. And this, I think, is another step forward towards enabling creativity if we use it properly. So that is, I think, very exciting. The part that scares me is if major powers don't take governance of AI seriously. And one thing that the EU AI Act prohibits is public surveillance using AI. There's very good reason to prohibit public surveillance using AI. There's a lot of misuse that could happen with AI, and we can stop that with the appropriate governance measures. We regulate, for the most part, the oil industry. We regulate a lot of technologies that can cause us harm, and that has been very good for us as a society. You could argue that there's a lot more that should go in there, but it is very scary to see infrastructure or the beginnings of infrastructures that were being set up for proper governance of these systems being dismantled.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got some questions from our audience, and I'm just going to read them out, and please feel free to jump in on wherever you like. But I do think this one's actually particularly good for Patricia, as being probably the most technologically empowered individual on the panel. As an entrepreneur looking to hire an AI developer, what would be the top 3 qualification questions you would ask for a successful candidate?
That really depends on what you want them to build, what technologies you want them to use, whether you need them to use it from scratch, build something from scratch, or whether you need them to deploy a pre-existing model. If you're looking at pre-existing models, somebody who has put AI into production in the past, I'd say, chances are you might need a bit of a heavier infrastructure team. And ask them about their experience in deploying AI into production. Ask them about also their experience with data. Chances are you're not just going to need somebody, your first hire is probably not going to be somebody who can just deal with the models, but who understands the data as well, if you have budget constraints, or who knows how to hire folks who can handle the data as well. It does, as I was mentioning earlier, it doesn't matter how shiny these models are, the real mode is going to be on what data you have access to and how you use it, or network effects, one of those. And so, in addition to the first thing of can you deploy in production, how do you handle data? Do you have experience handling data, or do you have experience hiring folks who handle data? And how well of a team player are they as well, I'd say. Can they communicate with teams who are cross-industry, or with a team that's focused on the vertical that you're looking at? And those communication skills are, if you only have one person, very, very important. If you want a superstar that's not very good at communicating, make sure their manager is very good at at translating requirements.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Great. This is a question we got a lot of before we started this session, and I really want to throw this at everybody because I feel like I'm a fairly well-informed person, and I can't keep up with all the news, everything that's happening in this industry. Do you have any recommendations about how to stay current when you don't live, breathe, and this industry? Is there anything you should be reading? Is there you should be listening to? Is there a good way to kind of stay relatively up to date without literally burning all of your cognitive power on it?
I'm going to
go ahead.
I'm going to give two recommendations. One is it's probably a 2-minute read. You can read, Sam Altman put out something called The Intelligence Age. You can just Google it. I think it's like a blog that he's put together. That gives you kind of a way to look at how the future potentially could look. And the other thing is Google has courses on AI. So, they're free. Go and sign up and do the first couple of courses, and they'll continue to add courses. So one, you have the futurist view, and two, you have a little bit of a technical / practical view on getting yourself up to speed on AI.
Any other suggestions out there, guys? What?
Yeah. This is maybe like a bit of a luxury, but internally in our company, like we encourage like sort of like R&D, internal R&D, and like projects with the team members. So this is for me, like this is how like I stay up to date. It's like the team kind of goes out, explores, giving them the space to kind of explore like a new technology or approach, and then come back and like share with the team.
All right.
I'd like to add one more thing.
Please.
Don't panic, number one. And number two, I think that things seem like they're moving a lot faster than they actually are. A lot of the fundamentals stay the same. So as long as you know those fundamentals, what you could do, like what's a classifier, what's a generative model, when do you use different types of AI for different problems, those are going to stay the same for a long time. You can add incremental knowledge as new releases come out, but it's not. If you start like that, it's not going to be as huge a learning curve as all of these media announcements make it seem like it is.
That's actually, I appreciate the nod to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It is true. Like I think it's very easy to feel like you're falling behind and that you're out of touch, but a little bit of energy and you can probably get yourself caught up relatively quickly. To that point, there's a lot of people out there who want to get their feet into this industry a little bit, get to know some people. Do you guys have any recommendations for networking opportunities, the opportunity to meet companies like yourselves and players to really kind of just expand your network and your possibilities into that technology?
Actually, I have a question for Navin on the back of that. Is like, don't you think like moving forward, like pretty much every company is going to be utilizing AI in some capacity?
Yes. So to kind of answer Daniel's question there on the networking piece, like every city has like meetups that you can go to on, there's various websites that have like Eventbrite, or there's, TechTO. There's so many different meetups, and you can find a meetup for, there could be one on, building AI models, or, AI enthusiasts. I would just caution and just say, just go and meet people and look for these type of events. And also the other thing is, you're making the first step by going and to listening to things like this, right? So a lot of this stuff is just not available on the internet, and you can, you're meeting a few people right now. So double down on those things. Podcasts.
Really great advice. This is a far more specific question. Patricia, you mentioned that many AI use cases are still emerging. Beyond familiar examples like chatbots and summarizations, what top-line growth opportunities do you see? Can you help us understand by sharing some specific examples where AI can drive new revenue streams or fundamentally shifting business models rather than just automation and cost reduction?
Rather than just automation or cost reduction. Wow. That's a tough one. I think I'll start by saying I think automation and cost reduction is probably number one for a lot of companies. There's of course self-driving cars and trucks. There's the Wabi by Raquel, founded by Raquel Urtasun, who's a professor at the University of Toronto and a brilliant scientist. And they have self-driving trucks that are on the roads in Texas. There's artists being creative using generative AI as well. I think I think that a lot of these opportunities are currently being explored and are quickly incrementally becoming more possible. But yeah, I think that's the billion-trillion-dollar question. What else can you do with this? So.
Yeah, and I think like there's going to be some stuff that's like category creating. Like I know we talked about Bordy, but there are going to become like applications out there where we just don't know what they are. But that's one where people nowadays interact less with each other. So maybe there's an application out there that you're going to speak to in the future that's like a Siri or some type of bot, and you're going to spend time with that, and you have to pay for use, right? So there are things outside of just automation. There are going to be some categories created that we just don't know.
I mean, I suppose also you can hide behind saying something is automation, right? When to the point you were just saying, Navin, like if you're lonely and you start talking to an AI as a friend, technically that is still automation. But it's also an enormous value creation for an individual that goes above and beyond anything else that they might be doing. So, I mean, don't underestimate the potential by starting with something that says it's automation, then going from there, right?
I would just like to add maybe one idea is that like quantifying the previously unquantifiable. So there is some startups around like IoT collecting data on like building use as a way of like evaluating designs. So before like a architect designs a building, but they have no idea like how does it actually perform. Whereas like there are some startups looking at like sensors and like ways of like evaluating like the kind of sustainability or even like use or quality of space, and which are really interesting applications of AI.
Okay, great. Thank you. So next question is, what do you guys as the panel think of the idea that sometimes AI is a solution looking for a problem, that we're literally trying to apply this to just about anything? And is that a problem? Is that an opportunity? Are we likely to discover gold in Demdar Hills that way?
Very true, and I think it comes from a lot of folks being in charge of figuring out where to apply it who don't have a product background. And so the faster that you can learn about how to build proper products and do exploration, the better.
I guess you go back to the early days of the internet, right? They pretty much try that. It's every possible problem out there could have a website, and where the challenge was actually building a business model around it. Is that ultimately going to be the litmus test here?
Yeah, I would say, going back to what I said earlier, is that, a lot of this technology now is becoming much more commoditized. So you can build theoretically anything without a computer science background. So you do need to build a business around it, right? So there are people out there who are going to create something that's a solution looking for a problem, but you will very quickly find out, and either your ability to raise capital or the viability of what you've built will be the test on if you have something that's real.
This is a really interesting question. I think this might be one of our last ones, but how do you guard against overstating AI's capabilities for investment or marketing purposes? What kind of checks or measures should the industry adopt to prevent misleading claims or inflated valuations? It's very easy to sit out there and say AI can solve all of our problems. It is the next great invention. But I mean, even as the technology is still evolving, there's tremendous limitations about what it can and can't do, and we don't know what those are. How do you prevent yourself from overpromising and under-delivering? Anyone?
I think I'll wear an investor hat on this. You can quickly sniff out who is over-promising just based on, oh, I've built something that's like 98% accurate and can do all these things, and we did it in this amount of time. So I think being honest is probably the first thing, saying that we are here and we hope to get here in X amount of time. That's probably the first step, as if you're building something and you're looking to either raise money or you want to have a real shot at building like a viable business, is be honest with yourself, right? You're not going to be, you're not going to bat 1,000 right off the bat. It is going to take you some time to get to some level of accuracy, some level of precision where you have happy customers. So I think being honest, because people can really quickly sniff out something that isn't real.
And I'd add to the flip side of that as well. We've often over the years have been approached by folks who doubt the claims that we make around how accurate our models are. So what we did was put a demo on the website, and that made a whole lot of difference with regards to believability. And because a lot of folks are going to be making crazy claims, the more you can demo your technology, the easier it is to prove to folks that it works the way you say it does.
Because seeing is believing, right? And the proof is in the pudding. Sayjel, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the thing I would look for is like a white paper and like kind of reading a little bit on the background of the technology. But yeah, I think Patricia and Navin make great points.
All right. Well, I think that's everything we have time for. So unfortunately, that concludes all the time we have for today's session. I would like to thank our incredible panelists, Navin Kaminoulu, Sayjel Patel, and Patricia Thaine, for joining us today and sharing their wealth of experience and knowledge. I would also like to thank you all for joining us today. I hope you found this session interesting and potentially inspiring. A survey will pop up at the conclusion of today's session, and I hope you all fill it out. If this session has sparked an increased interest in AI and how it can enhance your approach to work and leadership, the Ivey Academy is hosting an online workshop in March called Accelerating Leadership with AI. You will receive more details on this program, as well as a full recording of today's session, additional resources, and information about our next Impact Live event, a special International Women's Day edition, in a follow-up email next week. On behalf of Henrique and myself, we wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you at our next Impact Live in March. Goodbye.